Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this seminar this evening called Repeal the Death Tax regarding Repeal the Death Tax Initiative. And just a little bit of introduction. My name is Jean Joe. I'm the broker and owner of Perisson Real Estate. Perisson comes from the Greek word for abundance and overflow. And our company's vision is to serve our clients, colleagues, and communities so everyone can thrive and experience abundance in their real estate lives. We started in 2016, and we've been doing seminars and then became online seminars with COVID. And part of that comes from this whole idea of abundance and really wanting to be able to share and provide value to people around us. We welcome even other real estate agents. We think it's just good for everybody to share and lift each other up. And the more informed we are, the better we can all be together. So that's part of the vision that we have. And again, we welcome all our fellow colleagues, realtors. We're not here to do a sales pitch. We're here to really help educate and inform our community. Just a quick outline into this evening. So I did already a brief intro. I usually do these seminars, start them off with a very quick, brief real estate market update. There are some things about it that I think are relevant to our topic tonight. So I will spend a few minutes covering that and then go launch straight into our topic. So we'll cover the background of Prop 19, and then we'll talk specifically about the Repeal the Death Tax initiative that we're here to discuss, and then a few announcements at the very end. So again, the real estate market update and introduction. Well, what's going on with the real estate market? I think the old adage, supply and demand, holds true as it always has. So, and we have been seeing supply very light and demand continues to be very heavy. Just a quick look at months of inventory for single family homes in San Mateo County. This goes all the way back to 2005. And basically what months of inventory is to take what is the rate, what is the level of houses, the number of houses that we have on the market, and then take into account what is the rate. If we were to sell all of those at the current rate, how long would it take to sell them all? And generally speaking, traditionally speaking, 6 months of inventory is considered a balanced market. Anything above 6 months is considered a buyer's market, where the buyers have more control. There's a lot of inventory out there. Anything below that is considered a seller's market. And as you can see, solidly since about 2012, it's been pretty much a seller's market. And we were hoping that it would maybe ease up, but we're continuing to experience that, where this lower bar here that you see is 2 months of inventory, and we're pretty much staying at or below, well below 2 months of inventory. So whatever we have on the market, very easy to sell in general, very easy to sell within a matter of a month or less. So that's part of the supply that we're seeing. Median days to sell, this is how long does it take from when you put a house on the market until there is an offer accepted. And again, this is a metric goes back to 2005 for single family homes in San Mateo County. And the longer the time it takes to sell, that signifies a little bit that there might be a little bit less demand for the inventory that's out there. The shorter the time period, the quicker things are moving. And as you can see, this bottom bar here is a 10-day period. And so we've been seeing the median days to sell, houses selling on an average or median time period of 10 days. So 1 to 2 weeks is not uncommon. There are some houses that will stay on the market, some properties that will stay on the market a little bit longer, but on the whole, we're seeing them move very quickly. This little dip that you see here, that's because of COVID. So during that time period, our multiple listing service actually did a little bit of a pause in terms of counting days on market, because we were not able to have open houses and all of that for a little period of time. So that was paused for a few months, and that's why we're seeing this here. In the field, we're seeing definitely signs of the low inventory levels. At the same time, multiple offers, overbidding, all of that. You've probably heard about it in the news, but it's still going on, and things are moving very, very quickly. And the other thing to think about is the mortgage rates. 30-year fixed mortgage rate, this goes back just to 2017, In the last few years, we've had them, as most of you probably are aware, in the threes, sometimes dipping below three, and those have been inching up over time. They did go over four recently, and then after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, actually have come back down again to where they're a little less than four. But still, because of those higher interest rates that are edging up, we actually are anticipating that the demand is most likely to continue to stay high, at least through this year, as buyers try to, they want to be able to buy before the interest rates move up too much farther, if they can. This, I'm almost done, but this metric is the median sale price. So this, when we say median, it's basically the homes that are out there, half of them sell above this price and half of them sell below it. And so the median sale price for single family homes in San Mateo County have been steadily growing. So they were under $1 million range all the way up through about 2013, 2014. And since then, we've been edging up pretty steadily. There was a little bit of a worry right in the spring of 2020 with COVID. And then since then, we've pretty much been taking off to where in last year, in 2021, we actually surpassed the $2 million mark for twice in the year. And in February, last month's numbers came out to 1.975 million. So just keep in mind, that's the median sale price when we're talking about just an average home. That's another way to think about it, is close to $2 million right now in our county. And that's pretty extraordinary to think about. This is a little different way of looking at the home price appreciation. So we see here, this is for San Francisco, San Mateo, Redwood City, basically our peninsula area. And this goes all the way back to 2001 and shows a metric of the percents of appreciation. So since 2001, we've had a 206.7% appreciation in our values. And last year alone was a 15.7% increase, according to this metric, which comes from the FHFA numbers, the Federal Housing and Finance Agency. And this is just looking at all of California. So California as well as a whole has showed, although the numbers, the median sale price is lower overall for the state, California has also seen an increase of 214.3%, so well over 200% since 2001. And for the last year's number, a 19.6% appreciation. So that's pretty astounding. And I'd like you to just keep in mind the median sale price of 1.975 million just last month. I think that will lead into our topic for this evening, which I'd like to go through pretty soon. Up or down, what are economists expecting for this year? For the most part, the economists that we've been hearing from expect that the prices may continue to go up slightly, but not as quickly as they did last year. A part of that has to do with the interest rates and worries about inflation. This was most of the predictions came out before we also had the invasion of Ukraine. So not sure exactly where that will take us, but not many people are expecting that things will change that drastically over the year. I think the interest rates are going to be a major factor because it is expected that they will continue to rise, still stay within maybe the low 4s to mid 4s, 4%, which is still a great rate. It's just that the prices have gone up so high. And so again, that whole idea of supply and demand is a big issue here. So without further ado, we're going to go into the topic for this evening. Before we do, and before I introduce our speaker, I did want to put in a disclaimer. I am a realtor, and my company is a real estate company, but the California Association of Realtors and our local association, the San Mateo County Association, at this time are not taking a position on this initiative. So the information that we're providing here is, again, just to give you information. And also, if you are in support of it, what actions that you can take to help put this on the initiative, on the ballot for November, if you are so inclined. But this is not an official stance of the realtors. The California Association of Realtors actually was one of the main sponsors of Prop 19. And one of the benefits of it is the portability aspect, where homeowners of 55 and above, and also victims of wildfire and permanently disabled. Those with permanent disabilities would be able to take their property taxes with them when they relocate to another part of California. That is a favorable part that we really like. The part that we're talking about this evening is a little less favorable, I'll just say personally, and has to do with the inheritance piece of it. So we'll just go into that in a little more detail. So our speaker for this evening is Scott Kaufman, who is a legislative director for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, which is the main sponsor of this Repeal the Death Tax initiative.
Well, hello, everyone. As Jean said, my name is Scott Kaufman. I'm the legislative director for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. That's a fancy word for Howard Jarvis's registered lobbyist. I'm the guy who goes to the Capitol and asks them not to raise your taxes. They don't listen to me all the time, but they actually do listen to me sometimes. So we actually do fairly well for a taxpayer organization in California, I feel. So I guess let's just get right into it. So the background of Proposition 19, really we have to go all the way back to the 70s, right? Because California has a unique property tax system in Prop 13. So much like today, with inflation in the 70s, inflation was going through the roof. Home values were increasing dramatically year after year, and people's property taxes, which is at that point were assessed annually as a percentage of the market value. From one year to the next, they could be more than a mortgage payment, and people were losing their homes, or at least feared that they were going to lose their homes. And that's why Howard Jarvis and a bunch of other concerned citizens stepped in and put Proposition 13 on the ballot. And what Proposition 13 did is it rolled back the assessment rolls to 1976 and then set everyone's property values to 1% of fair market value, with no more than a 2% increase per year. And then it prohibited reassessments without a change of ownership or new construction. And it has to be fairly sizable new construction. Redoing your bathroom and those sorts of things doesn't count, but adding an addition or those sorts of things would trigger a reassessment. And then every time a property changes ownership, we go back to the 1% of the fair market value, which is typically assumed to be the purchase price, although the actual language of the law is fair market value. So sometimes there are some evaluation disagreements between the assessor and the taxpayer, and we're here for you if that ever happens. Give us a call. But and then you're once again capped at the 2% a year. We can go to the next slide now. But there was a problem. As I mentioned, values change, or properties reassessed on change of ownership, and so we ran into this problem in the 80s where kids who were inheriting their parents' homes were getting their properties reassessed, and because the homes were capped at the 1976 values and had only gone up to 2% a year, the reassessments were quite staggering in some cases, and in areas that had really become very desirable and the properties had increased in value quite dramatically. The reassessments were staggering, and kids were losing their homes. And so that wasn't the intention of Prop 13. In fact, the entire premise of Prop 13 is that folks shouldn't be taxed out of their homes by the tax code. So the legislature of all people, which is kind of ironic considering Prop 19's path to the ballot, the legislature of all people saw this as a problem, and they put Proposition 58 on the ballot. And what Proposition 58 said: when parents and when a property is transferred between a parent and children, it doesn't qualify for reassessment. So they get to keep the Prop 13 value, their base year value. They could transfer the family home, the primary residence where the parent claimed the homeowner's exemption, and then up to $1 million and other property. And it's important to state it's the assessed value of other property. So it wasn't the fair market value, but the assessed value of that other property, up to $1 million in it. And it wasn't just like one property and done. It was, if multiple properties were under $1 million in assessed value, they were all covered. And then Proposition 193 just expanded that, and it just simply added instances where the parent of a child was deceased and a grandparent wanted to pass on a property to their kids or to their grandkids without triggering reassessment. And them losing the home. I guess we can go to the next slide now. So that's the way it was for 30 years. And then in 2018, the California Association of Realtors tried to make some changes to the way portability worked. California already had laws on portability. You could move up to one. You move one time. It was the same. It's 55 and older, severely disabled, victims of wildfire could move one time and take their Prop 13 base year with them. But there were some rules. It had to be a home of equal or lesser value, and a county had to accept the transfer. And a lot of Southern California counties did, but most Northern California counties didn't. And the realtors thought that was unfair. We thought that was unfair. We actually supported this initiative in 2018 to expand portability, to require the counties to accept the transfer, and then make some other changes. It lost. It lost at the ballot box. And so, the California Association of Realtors went back to the drawing board, and what they heard from the legislature was, we're never going to support something like this because we see portability as a revenue loss. It's taking tax money away from us, because anytime someone moves and doesn't get reassessed, we're losing tax money. You have to find us something. And so there was a story in the LA Times about Jeff Bridges and how he inherited his home from his dad, and he got to keep his low tax value because of this law. And isn't that horrible? And someone should do something about it. And there it is. Well, we'll make changes to this that will now, the properties that were previously not reassessed are now going to be reassessed. That will fill in the loss from portability. It went the way now it works, once a ballot initiative gets 25% of signatures, it goes to the legislature, and the legislature can negotiate with the what's the right word, the people that are proposing the ballot initiative, the proponent, and they can talk it out. So what ultimately happens is the legislature actually are the ones who put it on the ballot. It was ACA 11, Assembly Constitutional Amendment 11, that became Prop 19. It passed. It passed very narrowly, by a point or two, but it did pass, and that's where we're at now. So I guess we can go to the next slide, because now the question is, what did Prop 19 do? Well, it did a couple of things. It did the portability part that we mentioned. Now you can move up to 3 times to a home of, and this part I'm not an expert on because this isn't really the part that we're dealing with. We're not touching this part. I think that's an important thing to mention. We're leaving that as is, no changes to the way it is under Prop 19. But you can move up to 3 times. County has to accept it, and it doesn't have to be to a home of equal or lesser value. It can be a home that's more expensive. I think there's a value calculation in there about how much more expensive it is, but talk to your realtor about that, because they're going to know that stuff better than I am. We're not touching it, so I'm not an expert in that. But the other thing it did was it changed the way property was inherited. So what it did was, if you remember, Prop 58-193 said that you could pass on your family home, your primary residence of any value, whether or not the child moved in, and it would not get reassessed. And up to $1 million in other property, which could be, a vacation home, a rental property, a small business that you own, the farmland, those sorts of things. Prop 19 changed that, and it said now you only get to keep the low tax value if you move into it within a year and claim it as your primary residence. And even then, the house has to be worth less than base year plus $1 million. And as we saw in that chart of San Mateo County, a lot of homes in San Mateo County are not under that threshold. So anything above that is going to get reassessed. And we'll get more into details about that, because Gene has a very convenient calculation for you later. We'll explain how exactly that works. But that's the important part. If you move in, claim it as your primary residence, and you satisfy that base year, under base year plus $1 million, you aren't reassessed. But anything over that, you are. If you don't move in, you're reassessed to full market value. The 1 million other property completely went away. So a second home, a rental property, a small business gets reassessed to market value no matter what. There are no exemptions, there are no exclusions. It gets reassessed. And if you already, and then I think the important part is it was not retroactive. So if someone's already inherited a home, like Jeff Bridges, they're not hurt by this. Jeff Bridges got his house. That the whole point of this was to get back at Jeff Bridges, and it doesn't do anything to him. But it does hurt a lot of people, especially people, lower income, first generation immigrants, folks that can't afford these sizable tax reassessments. I guess we can go to the next slide now. So here's just the comparison chart, which I think is important. I believe Gene, you probably got this off the BOE website, right? The BOE
Yes.
actually has a lot of very good information on their website, boe.ca.gov, I think. It's right on their front page. It's got this line about Proposition 19. You can click on it. It's got a lot of useful information. I think probably one of the most useful things is this comparison chart. And it just goes back to what I said, but in a more visual form. So principal, so it just has the principal residence, other real property. Remember before, you could transfer the principal residence of any value, whether or not you moved in, wasn't reassessed. Now you have to move in, claim it as your primary residence. It has to be, even if you do, it has to be under base year plus $1 million. If you don't, it's reassessed to market value. You used to be able to transfer $1 million in other property to your kids without triggering reassessment. You can no longer do that at all. You had 3 years before, now you have 1 year, and you have to file the homeowner's exemption. I think that's an important thing that people don't realize. It is not enough to move in. The assessor has to know you moved in. And the way they know you moved in is because you're filing for the homeowner's exemption on that property. And this went into effect February 16, 2021. So any inheriting from, so anytime a property changes hands through inheritance, starting on February 16, 2021 is under these rules. So we're under these rules right now.
Okay, so here's an example of what Scott's been talking about, and this Prop 19, the effect of Prop 19. So take an example of inherited property, and an original owner purchased 2 homes for $100,000 each, which is not uncommon in our area. One is the primary residence, and the other was an investment property or rental property. And then the current assessed value is now $200,000, and this is due to that Prop 13 cap, so the 2% cap on annual increases. So now they're valued at $200,000 each. And then the current property taxes for each is approximately, taking a 1.1% assessment, approximately $2,200 for each of the homes. And the current market value is 1.8 million, which is actually close to the median price in San Mateo County. This example I generated last year, so that was when we were closer to the 1.8 million. Now it's actually higher than that, but we'll keep that example for the purposes of the example, 1.8 million. And the owner passes away and leaves property to their children or to their grandchildren if the parents of the grandchildren are deceased. So with that premise, again, current assessed value is $200,000 for each home, and the current market value as 1.8 million. Previous to Prop 19, if there would be no assessment, no reassessment, because so the property tax would be unchanged at $2,200 per year for each home. First, because there was a principal residence, so the principal residence would be exempted, and then the investment property, because a taxable value, the assessed value, as Scott mentioned, is less than 1 million, it's only at 200,000, that would also be exempt. So property taxes have not changed, would not be changed previous to Prop 19. Under Prop 19, the investment properties would be fully reassessed to their market value of 1.8 million, and taking that 1.1% approximation of property taxes, that would increase to $19,800. So previously it was $2,200. Now it's gone to $19,800. So that's a pretty huge, almost 10 times increase for the investment property. For the inherited property, a little bit more of a calculation. So this would be for primary residence, sorry. If it's a primary residence of the transferor, of the parent or grandparent, and then it also would have to be the primary residence of the transferee. So the heir would have to move in, and this would only be valid as long as the heir is living there and would have to file for that homeowner exemption. So the assessed value, say again, it's $200,000. There would be $1 million added to that. So there would be this base of 1.2 million. So as long as the current market value is lower than 1.2 million, there would be no change in property taxes. But if it's higher, then the difference is added for a new assessed value. So in this case, the market value is now 1.8 million. So we would take the 1.8 million, subtract the 1.2 million that we calculated up here, and that would amount to an additional $600,000 of assessment. So you would take the 200,000, not 200, but 200,000 of original assessed value plus 600,000. And that would come out to $800,000 as the new assessed value. So the it's a little bit complicated in my mind. I've kind of run through this several times. Basically, take the current market value and subtract $1 million, and from there you'll get what is the new assessed value. So taking again the 1.1% estimate, that would come out to an annual property tax change of $8,800. So going from 22 to 88, basically a 4 times in value for the primary residence. And so that's quite a significant change.
Yeah, as soon as this passed, we at Howard Jarvis, we immediately started receiving phone calls from folks that were really concerned about it. And now that we're a year past February 16th, we're starting to get real world examples of the impacts of this. I had a guy call me just a couple days ago in Alameda County, where his parents bought a home many years ago in Alameda County, in a place that has become quite desirable. I'm not sure where, he didn't say, but it's an area that's become quite desirable. And his mother died in June of last year, and the assessor's called because the assessor needs him to make a decision. The assessor needs to know if he's going to move in or not, because the assessor has to do his job, and his job is to reassess that property after 1 year. And so he told me his property taxes, if he moves in, are going to be $16,000 a year. If he doesn't move in, they're going to be $26,000 a year. And he told me he doesn't think he can pay it either way. And so it's looking like he's going to have to sell, and he doesn't want to sell. But we're hearing this a lot. We're hearing this especially in very desirable places like the Bay Area, LA, where even modest homes, San Jose, where even modest homes are worth more than $1 million now, and folks are worried that they're going to have to sell, and they don't. And yeah, if they sell, they're going to have a pretty sizable return on that investment. But a lot of these folks don't want to sell. It's the family home. And I also think the argument, a lot of people say, well, you can just move in. You can't just move in though, right? Because that's not how life works. I'm from Oxnard, and now I live in Sacramento because that's where my job is. And I'm not going to be able to move back to Oxnard within a year and claim my parents' home. I frankly wasn't going to keep the home anyways. I don't really have a dog in this fight, but I just think it's wrong what's happening to people. People shouldn't be forced to sell their home because they can't afford to pay the taxes. That was the premise of Prop 13. And that's why we're putting forward this initiative to repeal this part of Prop 19 and put it back to the way it was. There's also obviously the important part about tenants. I know a lot of folks who own small rentals, duplexes, those sorts of things, that are charging folks below market rate rents because they see the value in keeping a long-term tenant. A long-term tenant has an ownership stake in the property. They feel like it's theirs and they take care of it. And so I know a lot of people who really aren't, the rental income is nice, but they really want to keep the asset. That's the important thing to them. And so they want someone in the house that is taking care of the asset, and they're willing to, charge below market rent for that. But if you run into this situation where you're inheriting a property and your property taxes are going up 300%, a gentleman in San Francisco that volunteers for us told us, he has a bone disease, a degenerative bone disease, and his mom very early in his life purchased this rental property that she hoped would be able to support him, and when he couldn't work anymore, and it happened in his late 30s, early 40s, that he was kind of medically retired, and his property taxes are going to go, I think, like 800%, and San Francisco's rent controlled. And so he's not going to be able to recoup those costs from his tenants. And God, could you imagine an 800% increase in your rent? How difficult that would be for the tenants. He can't raise the rents. He's not going to be able to recoup the costs. He's going to have to likely kick his tenants out, sell the property, and charge. And someone else is going to come in and probably charge market rate rents. It's going to be really difficult for people. And whether it's the long time family home or an investment property, we just think it's wrong to be taxed out of it. That wasn't the deal, right? People went into these investments or bought their family homes with the understanding that they were going to be able to pass them on, build intergenerational wealth. And you see this a lot in, particularly in immigrant communities, first generation immigrants, where the inheritance is the home, right? It's the parents have put their entire life's work into this home, and that's what they're going to pass on to their kids, and now the kids have to sell it. I got a call from a gentleman in Palo Alto whose parents bought a home in Palo Alto many years ago, before it was the center of Silicon Valley. and the house has appreciated dramatically as a result of it being in the center of Silicon Valley. But it's a very modest home. First, his parents are immigrants from India, and he called me and he just said, I don't know what to do because I know my parents want me to keep this house. And he said, they're both in hospice. They're not doing well. I'm having to have difficult conversations with my brother because I don't know what we're going to do. He doesn't want to talk about it. So it's creating a strained relationship between me and my brother because he doesn't want to think about our parents dying, but it's a conversation we have to have. But I know my parents want me to keep this house. This is what they put everything into. It's they pulled money out of that house to send their kids to college. And it's the family home, and it was their first home. And he just feels really attached to it, but he's not sure how he's going to pay the property tax. And he's really heartbroken. He's going to have to sell his parents' livelihood, their lives, and his memories. And so that's why we put our initiative. That's why we're trying to collect signatures for our initiatives. That probably is the next slide, if I remember correctly. The next slide, repeal the death tax. So what are we going to do? Well, if you recall, before Prop 19, you could inherit your family home of any value, and you didn't have to move in, and you wouldn't trigger a reassessment, and you could keep up to $1 million in other property without triggering reassessment. We're largely putting it back to the way it was. The way primary residences are inherited will go back to the way it was under our initiative. If you inherit your family home of any value, whether or not you move in, it's yours. It's not going to get reassessed. It's yours. It's your home. What we did do, we took the $1 million in property, and after having conversations with folks in the small business community and the agricultural community, who told us that $1 million is just not enough to protect their family farms, their small businesses anymore. They asked us if we'd be willing to bump that up for the purposes of our initiative. So what we did was we went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I think it was Bureau of Labor Statistics. They have an inflation calculator. We put $1 million in 1986 into the inflation calculator. 2.4 million popped down. It's probably more now with inflation, but at the time that's what it was 2.4. So we said, great. So we put 2.4. It's just $1 million in 1986 adjusted for inflation, and we also pegged that to inflation. So that number will now go up. So we don't have to come back in 30 years and raise it again, because 2.4 million isn't a lot of money anymore for folks. And then once again, we're just rolling back the intergenerational transfer part. We're leaving everything else alone. We're not touching portability. The way there's a complicated formula in there relating to the wildfire funding, and it relates to portability. How much money the states how much money they're losing because of portability, how much money they're gaining because of the inheritance changes, and then the surplus goes into wildfire funding. Because we're taking out one of those planks of that causes some issues for that, but we're going to try and fix that. We put forward a state constitutional amendment. Jim Nielsen, a state senator, put forward SCA, State Constitutional Amendment 8, where we're going to try and work with the legislature to backfill that money, because we think that firefighters are deserving, especially in this state. But firefighting is an issue of statewide concern. We think it should be funded out of the general fund. That's what that measure does. It just allocates 1% of the general fund to wildfire funding and backfilling these accounts. And we just think it's an issue of statewide concern. It should be funded by the general fund and not on the backs of kids grieving the death of their parents. Next slide, please. So yeah, current status. So I'll tell you, we have poll tested our ballot initiative. It polls very well. We are very confident if we get it on the ballot, we win. The problem is getting it on the ballot. We need what we really need. So technically we need 997,000 signatures and some change. But obviously people are going to make mistakes. There's a lot of rules about the proper way to fill out a ballot initiative. You have to, everyone who's signing the ballot petition has to live in the same county. They have to be registered to vote. They have to sign at the address they're registered to vote at. And if they don't do those things, that signature is tossed out. It's invalid. So we know that some people are going to make mistakes. They're going to put a PO box instead of the house they're registered to vote at. They're going to forget whether or not they're registered. They're going to sign in a different county. We're going to lose some signatures that way. So what we're really looking for is 1.5 million signatures, because statistically speaking, that's enough for us to qualify with mistakes. We're assuming about an 80% validity rate. We're using all volunteers. They typically are better at collecting signatures than the paid guys, because they care about this more than the paid guys. The paid guys get paid whether or not the signature's valid. A volunteer cares because they want this fixed, so they're going to make sure that signature's valid. So we we think that they're gonna do a great job. People have asked, why haven't we done paid signature gathering? It's ridiculously expensive. That's the end of the day. Signatures on the street right now, just for the signature, are going for like $8-9. And then after everyone gets their cut, it's upwards of like $15 per signature. And we just frankly don't have $20 million for a paid signature drive. So we're working with volunteers. And that's why I'm doing this circuit. I'm raising awareness, telling folks what we're doing, because we need your help. We need 1.5 million signatures. We need them by April 15th. I think we're doing really well. We have a million signatures out there right now, a million signatures worth of petitions right now. We just put an order in for 500,000 more. That'll put us where we need to be. They're out there. They just need to come back. If we get this on the ballot, we win. If we don't get it on the ballot, we lose. I think that's, at the end of the day, that's the truth. That's the truth of the matter. So if you're hearing my voice, you can go to our website at https reinstate58.hjta.org. It's there on the screen if you can't see it. An even easier way to do it is just go to hjta.org. HJTA stands for Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association.org. There's a big red flashing light on the top of our main page. It says find out how to repeal the death tax. You hit that button. It takes you to the website that Gene's pulled up right here. And on the front page there, you can get the petition by mail. You can pick up a petition at locations. We do have Bay Area locations that you can just drive to if you don't want to wait for the mail. And then you can also do the death tax calculator, which allows you to calculate what your kids are going to have to pay if they don't move into your home. And it can be quite dramatic. I had a guy call me a couple of weeks ago and said, how much is my son going to pay? And I said, well, how much is the house worth? And he told me. I said, your son's going to pay $13,000. And he said, well, where do I sign? It's that simple. But that's what we're doing. Again, we need 1.5 million signatures. So if you care about this, if you're worried about your kids inheriting their property, inheriting your property and having to sell it, this is the initiative for you. Sign up, get the petition. We'll mail it to you. We need wet signatures. That's why we're mailing it to folks. It's a legal document. It has to be a real signature. So we're mailing it out to folks. It is legal sized. So that's why you can't print it at home. The referendum rules were written into the state constitution in 1911. So they're written with a 1911 kind of mindset with the font sizes and the margin sizes. They weren't written for folks to print at home. So that's why we have to send you a legal size document to sign. But we're happy to do that for you. You just go on our website, request it, or you go and pick up one at one of our signing locations. I think next slide. Oh, and that's the death tax calculator right there on the screen there. So you can go and calculate that and be quite shocked, I think, for a lot of people, especially in San Mateo County. And I'm happy to answer questions. It's actually my favorite part.
So there were a couple questions in that talk about the petitions. People are asking about petitions. So if you go to this website, and again, you can keep out the reinstate 58. You can just say HJTA, which is the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association website, and then go straight to this area. It will actually let you know where you can get petitions. You can sign up to even, well, maybe I should let Scott talk about it, but you can even sign up to become a petition pickup spot. You can host events, and I believe there's a Friday gathering as well. We do have also a few forms at our office in Millbrae. So if anybody's interested, I'd be happy to help take some signatures there as well. So did you want to add something to that, Scott, that portion of it? And then there are a couple other questions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just go to reinstate58.hjta.org. That's a direct link. If that's too much to remember, you can just go to hjta.org. At the top of our main page is a big red flashing light that says repeal the death tax. Find out, you click, it'll take you to the website. You see there on the screen where you can get a petition. You can get as many petitions as you like. There are 6 signatures per petition, so just keep that in mind. But we will send you as many petitions as you want. You can pick up as many petitions as they have at distribution locations. There's no limit. The only limit is how many signatures you think that you personally can get. You're welcome to pass them along to friends. You don't, just because you're taking the petition doesn't mean it's your responsibility. One thing I recommend to folks, seems to be really helpful, is get 7 petitions, and then when someone signs your petition, you say, hey, why don't you get 6 signatures? Because 6 signatures seems like a really easy number for people. Like everyone knows 6 people. And I found that that's really effective. And so your 6 signatures are now turned into 36 signatures. And it can just kind of keep going like that. And, we're getting calls from people all the time who got petitions from friends and they're like, I've thought of other people I can get. How do I get more? So that's really, it really warms my heart that this is kind of spider webbing out, right? Because we're doing the best we can to bring it to people's attention. But as George said, there's a lot of folks that just don't know what happened. And a lot of folks aren't going to know what happened until they get the tax bill from the assessor. And that's the reality of it. But you can pick up as many as you want. There's
Scott,
6 signatures per.
Some people are even asking for 20, if they can get 20 copies. What's the best way to request the petitions?
The best way is to, you can get it by mail if you want it delivered directly to you, and we'll send it to you in 10s, 20s, 50s, 100s, however many you want. We will mail it to you. Pickup locations typically have at least 500 on hand. On our website there at the distribution location, we send them usually between 500 and 1,000, depending on what they think they can handle. And if they don't, if they run out, let us know, because we'll send them more.
And the signers must be registered voters, right?
Yes. Yeah. So there's a couple important things that you need to know. Everyone who signs a petition has to live in the same county. There's a line at the top that says what county these folks are signing in. It has to be the same county. If you have folks that are in different counties, give them a different petition. So if there's folks in San Mateo and folks in Santa Clara, 2 petitions, one for San Mateo, one for Santa Clara. They have to be registered voters in the state of California. They have to sign at the address they are registered to vote at. The reason why is because if we collect enough signatures, these signatures are going to go to each county's registrar of voters. So all the signatures collected in Orange County are going to go to the Orange County registrar of voters. And what they're going to do is they're going to do a random count. They're going to pull names out at random, and they're going to look them up on their voter rolls and see if those people exist. So that's why you got to sign at your registered address, because that's how they're going to find you. If they don't find you, they say, this isn't a valid signature. If we don't get enough valid signatures, we don't make it. If we don't get enough valid signatures on the random count, they're going to go to a full count. We need these by the reason why we're asking people to get them to us by April 15th is because we need to get to them, the counties, by April 29th to satisfy if any of the counties need to go to a full count. That should give them enough time to complete the full count and still qualify us for the November 2022 election. In theory, it's kind of fluid, but that's in theory how it works.
And then after getting the signatures, George asked, where do people turn them in, or do they mail them to, where do they mail them?
You mail them back to us. So each petition has our address on the bottom of the 6th page. It's the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association office in Sacramento. We're going to collect them all. We're going to do our own kind of verification, make sure we have enough, make sure they're valid signatures, divide them up by counties, and then get them out to 58 counties. So you'll send them to our office. And I will pull up our office real quick because I don't remember off the top of my head. Because I don't just know the address. I don't mail anything there. I just go there. But it's 921 11th Street, Suite 1201, Sacramento, California 95814. And I will put that in the chat too, so you have it there.
And it'll be at the bottom, you said, of each petition.
It's on the bottom of page 6, the signature page. It's on the bottom.
Okay. And Lisa asked, did you say that you already have 1 million signatures and need 500,000 more?
We have 1 million signatures worth of petitions out there that they're coming back. They're not coming back as fast as we'd like, but I think this is the reality of doing a citizen campaign, is that people are holding on to them. When you do a paid signature campaign, those people get paid for turning in signatures. So they're turning in signatures as fast as they can. I think a lot of people are holding on to them until they complete their stack, or they've got 5 and they want 1 more. I think we're going to get a truckload of them. They're going to start coming by the truckloads in late March, early April. They are coming back. We are satisfied with the numbers that are coming back. We're still optimistic. They're not coming back as fast as we like, but there are enough signatures out there to qualify, and there will be enough signatures out there to qualify. They just have to come back. We're going to, the next shipment will put us up to 1.5, which is where we want to be. But we're going to keep sending out petitions. We're hoping to get out at least 2.5 million signatures worth of petitions out there, just to make sure we qualify. They just have to come back. That's the big if. Enough of them have to come back.
And let's see. Somebody asked, I'm missing. Oh, Diane asked, if you bought your home in 1986 in San Mateo County, are you under Prop 13? And did Prop 13 end at a certain time?
No, Prop 13 did not end, and yes, you are covered by it. So how Prop 13 works is every time there's a change of ownership it gets reset, right? So when you purchased your house, let's see, in
1986.
in 19 when you purchased your house in 1986, they did 1% of fair market value. They put your property tax at 1% of full market value, which is usually the purchase price. Sometimes the assessor wants to quibble about it, but most of the time it's assumed to be the purchase price. So 1% of your purchase price, and then it can only go up 2% a year. That happens. So people who bought a home this year are protected under Prop 13, and on their next property taxes, they'll be covered. Their property tax can't go up more than 2%. People are saving every single year under Prop 13, even if you bought your house last year. As soon as you get your first property tax bill, you've saved money because of Prop 13.
Well, Scott, what I wanted to know is, if it doesn't happen this year, we got a chance of doing it next year again?
The next time we could do it is the 2024 election. So it's got to be on a general election ballot. So the next shot would be 2024. We are committed to Plan A. We're not looking at Plan B, but in the sad event, if we don't make it, yeah, we're certainly going to look very, very closely at trying again in 2024. And I think 2024 might be more favorable for us just because we'll have more time to raise money and those sorts of things. But like I said, there's no Plan B for us right now. We're all guns blazing on Plan A and getting it on the ballot this year because people are hurting now. I'm getting the phone calls every single day, these stories, and the stories, like I haven't even talked about, like I'm getting a lot of calls from folks who have disabled children, and they've kind of organized their entire estate around making sure that their disabled child will have a home to stay in, and have enough money left put aside to pay the property taxes, and have a living caregiver or something. And this is completely thrown it all out the window because the property taxes are going to get reassessed so dramatically, and their child may be homeless, and that's not what we want, right? It's something I didn't even think of, and I'm getting so many calls about people who have set up estates and trusts and those sorts of things for their disabled kids it's just so sad. So we want this to pass now because I want those phone calls to stop. They make me really sad. I'm getting a little emotional just thinking about it. But yeah, and I guess another important thing we didn't mention is a lot of folks say, well, just put your home in a trust. A trust does not protect you from property taxes. A trust does have a lot of tax benefits. Property taxes are not one of them. The assessor will look through the trust to see who owns the property. And when the ownership changes, the property will be reassessed.
I've been in this home for 41 years, and my daughter has always lived here with me for 41 years, and she wants to stay here because I'm going to be 89 in another month, and she's very concerned that she's a manicurist. She can't afford the taxes. So would it be something I should think about in putting her on? What am I trying to say? I don't have a mortgage anymore, but
putting her on the
title.
deed.
On title.
On the deed, or can I do that, or is they don't allow that, or what?
You can do that. However, as I mentioned, property taxes are reassessed on change of ownership, and adding or removing someone to a deed is a change of ownership.
Oh.
So if you added her to the deed, you would see a 50% reassessment. If you're the only two people on the deed. So if you're the only person on the deed, you add your daughter, it would be a 50% reassessment on your property. And then when you passed, it would be the rest. That's saying it sounds like she's going to stay in the house. If the house is worth less than base year plus $1 million in San Mateo, I don't know if that counts, if that can even happen. But if it's below your base year, what your assessed value is, what the assessor says your home is worth, which is typically lower than obviously fair market value considerably. If the house is base year, the assessed value plus $1 million, if it's less than that, she won't get reassessed. If it's over that, she will get reassessed. And I think I just completely made that very confusing. But Jeannie, if you want to jump in and say it better, because you said it so well last time.
I think I think you're pretty much there. So don't change anything on title. I think kind of related to that is Yvette asked, will it go back? And if the this initiative passes, gets enough signatures and passes, will it go back and be retroactive to when Prop 19 passed. And I believe that's true. But Scott?
Yes. If we are successful, our initiative is retroactive. We can't do anything about the property taxes. Your kids, God forbid you pass, but if you pass before we pass it, we can't do anything about the property taxes your kids are going to have to pay in the meantime, until we pass our initiative, just because it is the law right now. It is as they call good law, whether we agree or not that it's good law. And as far as the law is concerned, it's good law. It's legal. So we can't do anything about the property taxes you might owe now. But once the initiative passes, the rate will go back to the way it was before. It is retroactive, yes.
Thank you. And I know George wants to say something, but before I forget, I just wanted to add in. So this is very grassroots. A lot of although the state association did back Prop 19, a lot of the realtors that I know are actually didn't like this piece of it, the inheritance, how it affects the inheritance portion of it. And we have a lot of clients who are impacted by it. So for those of you who are realtors on this call, I would really encourage you to, get out there and educate people on it. If you're really against it, at least educate people about it, just so that they're aware of the issues and understand it at least. And if you're not a realtor and you have realtor friends, I would encourage you to reach out to them so that they can help spread the word, because a lot of us have contacts in our own network, and really that's the only way for it to go out. However you're going to believe it, whether you agree or disagree, at least you should understand it if you're going to vote. So I'd really like to encourage everybody to get informed. Again, whichever way you end up, I think that's really important, first of all. And as I mentioned, our prices here, our median sale price is 1.9. So I'm talking to clients as well who are really having to rethink their whole estate planning and what they're going to be passing on to their heirs because of this. So I'd really encourage you to get out there and at least get informed. And if you believe in it, try to do what you can to help with this. So
yeah, I would echo that. I would say for or against our initiative, I think it's really important to raise awareness to this change, because a lot of people don't know about it. And I sit on the Board of Equalization Advisory Committee, and the Board of Equalization is the group that's tasked with property taxes. They're tasked with kind of interpreting the law for the assessors and how to implement things. And so they're really focused on Prop 19 implementation. And one of the things they're really concerned about is that people don't know. And so they're really working on trying to raise awareness for people. Because like I said, it's not enough to move in. You have to claim the homeowner's exemption so that the assessor knows you moved in. And a lot of people don't realize that. And the Board of Equalization just they've sent, I think 12 implementation letters to assessors on Prop 19 already. And the last one that they sent last week was 12 pages long, full of highly technical kind of details. It's confusing. It's complicated. People don't know what's going on. So yeah, for or against our initiative, I think it's really important to just raise awareness to people just so they know and can plan accordingly.
With that, I'll say thank you so much to Scott for being here. Thank you to all of you who have joined us for this evening. And I really hope this will provided some very helpful information for you.